Training is crucial for performance, improvement, and consistency. It's also one of the most expensive investments we're ever going to make. Getting it right can make a massive positive impact on our business. When we don't see meaningful results from training, it can cause tremendous frustration. In this 6-part series, of which this is part 6, I'm sharing the guidelines for training I've established for myself after many years of learning what works and what doesn't.
Running a service business can be hard. It is not unusual for business owners in industries like contracting, home repair, auto repair, business-to-business services like janitorial, IT and accounting, and many others to feel overwhelmed by all the priorities facing them at any given time. Between addressing the needs of the customers, managing the employees, figuring out the financials, and getting processes in place, feeling like you're making significant progress on your business journey can be difficult. Welcome to Service Industry Success, hosted by Brian Harding. Each week, Brian will look at real-world strategies for building the business you are dreaming of, while also sharing tactics to get through some of the most frustrating parts of business ownership with a lot more ease. Let's get started.
I look at training like an investment. I put in time, money, and energy now, anticipating a greater return of time, money, and energy later on. But not all investments are the same. An investment made in 1990 in a Walmart stock would have resulted in much different returns than an investment made in Radio Shack stock. Just because I invest the time, energy, and money for training and education for our teams does not guarantee we're going to see a return. We also must have effective training systems, processes, and strategies. This is part 6 of a 6-part series in which I'm covering the guidelines I've developed for myself when I'm doing training and education with my team. It's not necessarily an all-inclusive list, but it is fairly comprehensive. If you haven't listened to the previous episodes in the series, I would definitely recommend starting it from the beginning, starting at episode number 179. Okay, so we got 2 left. We're going to cover both of them this episode here. Again, many of these things are not revolutionary. They're not, I didn't come up with this stuff. They've been around for 2,500 years, maybe 7,000 years. I don't know. So most of these ideas have been around for a long time. The key is, for me, being top of mind aware of these things as I'm doing the training. And I literally have a list. And if you want that list, you can get a hold of me and I'll send it to you. I want everybody to have it. It's a great, the more we can be in tune with this stuff, for me, the more I'm in tune with this stuff, the better my life goes, the easier it is. And again, for me, I think there's a direct correlation to me working 3 days a week, running a multi-million-dollar business with very little direct oversight, and the investment we made in training. Easily one of the top 3 to 5 reasons our company grew, and especially why I was able to not have to be in the weeds and in the day-to-day, was directly because of the effectiveness and the investment we made with consistent training. Okay, so the first one we're going to get into, again, this is not anything you haven't heard a million times, but it is definitely a rule for me. If they can't teach it, they don't know it. That's the rule. And this is a great test, and not in a gotcha way, not in a, well, you think you're so smart, you come teach. I don't mean it like that at all. I don't mean it like that at all. I do mean that it is a fantastic measurement of how well they know a thing. Now, I'm talking about for many industries, we have to send people out in the field to go do things. We don't have direct oversight. And the idea that you're going to be able to go and look over their shoulder and see if they know how to do things is ludicrous. You can't do that. So what's the next best thing? Next best thing is have them teach it. Because if they can teach it, I know they know it. And, there's many sayings about this, like the best way to learn things is to teach it. I fully support all that stuff. It's different when you have in manufacturing, you have people in a big warehouse and you can just walk around and watch them do stuff. If you're in an office, you can go to the cubicle. Nowadays we have people working remote. We have people working in different countries, and lots of companies and lots of industries have to send people out into customers' homes or customers' businesses or whatever. We have to send them away from the office to go do stuff. So you can't look over their shoulder. You can't go watch them do the thing. So my company was like that. My industry was, we sent people, our employees who provided the service and fixed the widgets, they went out somewhere else and did it. They didn't do it in our office. It's exceptionally hard to know if they really know what we need them to do and they really know the right process and they really know the way all that stuff is hard. This is a fantastic way to get around that is to identify that. So, um, one of the things that I believe is true is when we have conversations in a group meeting or one on one, and I ask a question like, what does success look like? Why do we do it? Why does it matter we do this thing? And then we get to how do we do the thing? If they need reminders in any of those things along the way in that conversation, in the meeting, it's very unlikely they wouldn't also need reminders out by themselves. If they don't have a top of mind awareness, now that's not, again, not they can't forget things once in a while. Of course, we're all human. I'm not saying they don't have to score 100% on every test. I'm not saying that. But if there's a pattern of like, I asked this thing and like consistently they're not getting this part, or this thing that seems like it should be a pretty obvious thing, like they don't have the answer. It's not likely that they don't have the answer in this moment, but they will when I'm not around. Now, there is another component to this to factor in, which is um, being put on the spot by the boss. Again, I don't mean this stuff in a gotcha kind of way. And if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, I hope you know that to be true by now. I'm not looking to ensnare people in gotcha situations. That's the worst thing I could do. I need to have people be open and willing to be honest and forthcoming. I don't get that ever by putting people in gotcha situations. And again, not because I'm a great guy, because I'm selfish and I need them to be honest to diagnose where they don't understand things so I can teach them things so I can be free to do other stuff. um, so there is a bit of a component here to be mindful of, like, as the owner of the company, if I just walk up like, hey, Johnny, how do we do this? Like there's going to be like a little bit of like immediate, oh crap, what's going on? And they might forget some stuff, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things that we need them to know. Like, no, like really no, not superficial, trivial, ancillary kind of stuff, right? My point is though, if they can't teach us, they don't know it. And this also helps with attentiveness. Once we started rotating our employees through teaching various topics, and they knew they could or would be called upon to do so, what do you know? Engagement improved. Once we just got in the cadence of pretty much every meeting, one or two of our employees would be teaching a thing. They all knew that they would or could be called upon to teach a thing. And again, going back to my rule earlier from a couple episodes ago, the last thing they want, it's human nature to be petrified of looking stupid in front of your peers and your boss. And one of the ways you can do that is if we just spent a month talking about a thing, and then the boss says, John, I'd like you to teach this next week. And John has to say, yeah, I don't think I wasn't paying attention. Or John says, oh yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then John comes in to teach the thing and John clearly wasn't paying attention. The one of the things that helped us with it in engagement and involvement in the conversations was once we began this rotation of like, okay, we're going to have a couple people every week train some stuff. Now, by the way, there's secondary benefits to this. I was able to see who was good at training things. I was able to see who enjoyed training things. I was able to see who the guys in the other employees enjoyed being trained by. It was great to find out like who potential leaders were. That was it's completely a side benefit though. That's not the primary reason we did this. But we all know, again, we've been told hundreds, if not thousands of times in our lives, maybe not thousands, dozens for sure, maybe a couple hundred times we've been told the best way to learn a thing is to have to teach it. In the moment, that's my gauge, one of my gauges. Could they teach this? And that helps inform the questions I ask in the training meeting. What are the things that somebody who didn't know this would ask? Could they answer that? Like this is kind of part of my, me. I'm always gauging what do they know? What depth of knowledge do they have? And again, a way for me to know that is, could they teach this to your average 18-year-old? They teach it to your average 16-year-old. Those are the kind of things I'm asking myself as I'm literally going through the training meeting and I'm hearing the answers they're giving, Give me one that's kind of close. Okay, well, that wouldn't make sense if they were trying to teach this. I got to get a little bit more. They got to get a little bit better, right? Um, and again, the attentiveness part, if you find that your team is just disengaging for things, start with simple stuff. Don't give them a huge, heavy lift right out of the gate of things they got to teach, but start integrating into the meetings. Well, I'm just going to tell you what we did. I'm not telling you to do anything. What we did is we started to integrate into the meetings where people were teaching things, very simple things in the beginning, and then increasingly more difficult and complex and more sophisticated. And then, what do you know? Towards the end, they were teaching things that were very complex, very sophisticated, relative to where we started for sure. Now, there's still things I taught. Most of the stuff was taught by our operations guy, who was fantastic at this. So there's certainly things that we retained as far as this goes, but um, again, working them into that rotation of having to teach things, it just changes the level of attention they're paying. I'll put it that way. Okay, the last one we're going to cover. If you've made it through this whole 6-part series, like congratulations. I hope this is helpful. I know some of the stuff gets kind of boring. I heard somebody say something last weekend that I thought was really relevant to this, and I wasn't prepared to talk about this today, but I heard it, and I think it's really meaningful. And I might even do a whole episode on this one day, but I haven't really quite thought through. I thought it was really insightful what he said. It's one of those things. It's like, well, yeah, file that between no duh and no crap. Like, of course, that's the way it is, but it's not something we think about a lot. And what he said was, our success in business is directly correlated to how well we do the things we hate to do. And for many people, I mean, many people, training is one of those things. They feel like they shouldn't have to. They feel like they're not good at it. They feel like it's too expensive. We have to give up earning revenue to have these meetings, and they don't work anyway. Like, why bother? This is one of those things that many people just don't enjoy, just don't think they're good at. So this is why I've devoted 6 episodes to this, and I do this every so often. Once a year, I do like a long series like this. I hope it's helpful. I know it gets kind of monotonous. I will just say once again, these things literally changed my life. These are some of the most important skills I learned from mentors that changed my life professionally in a way that dramatically impacted my personal life. Just my quality of life, having done these things and learning how to do them well over just reps. Again, I was not born with any kind of superhuman talent with this stuff. If anything, it was just the opposite. If anything, I would estimate that 93% of the people listening to this podcast were born doing this stuff better than I was. I promise you, if anything, I was at the end of the class. All I had was people who were willing to show me, and I didn't have a choice. I had to do it, or I wouldn't have had a job. Or I would have had to get a crummier job. And I just have years of reps now. That's all I have. It's just practice, trying things, learning immediately in many cases what doesn't work, sometimes learning later on what doesn't work, and then seeing what does work. That's all I have. And these things, I would say, are some of the things that have had the biggest impact on my life professionally. And that's why I'm spending so much time on it. I hope it's not too boring. Many things we talk about in here are boring, though. Like, who enjoys talking about procedures and financials, right? You might be listening saying, this is the best, this is the most exciting thing you've ever talked about, Brian. All right. Last one we're going to cover is this. The finish line is the application of the knowledge, not just attaining the knowledge. If they can't explain how they're applying the knowledge, they aren't. And if they're not applying the knowledge, we haven't really gained anything. The finish line is not me telling them. So many times, again, looking at myself and me as an employee, listening to bosses do training, listening to peers do training, other managers I work with, many times we look at the finish line as I told them the thing. That's the finish line. From there, it's up to them to take it and run with it. I don't look at it that way. I look at it, the finish line is them actually applying this knowledge, whether it's our core values or how we fix the widget. It doesn't matter what the thing is. Understanding their responsibilities of the job. It doesn't matter what the topic is. The finish line is me somehow able to verify they're actually applying this knowledge in their day-to-day decision making. If that is not happening, it's all for naught. And so I have to be aware in the conversations that the finish line is them applying the knowledge. And the only way I can verify that they're applying the knowledge, again, in most cases, industries I help people with, we can't just walk over and watch how they do stuff. I mean, certainly not going to sit over there for 6 hours and listen to them talk about things and see if they're applying knowledge on like core values or the customer journey or these, bigger ideas. Like you couldn't even do that. When I asked them though, let's take like one of our primary functions. Let's say it's building relationships. That's one of your primary functions. Let's say. Sally, this knowledge you have now that building relationships is arguably the most important thing we do. How do you apply that in your day-to-day decision making? And if Sally doesn't have an answer, that means Sally's not applying that knowledge. And that means the training has not quite worked yet. And so I have to figure out what is the gap from we're having these conversations, we're having these meetings, we're having these one-on-one chats, like whatever it is. Where is the disconnect of that knowledge being transmitted by me, comprehended by her, and then applied by her? Where is the gap? Because the application is the goal, not just knowing the stuff. And me telling them is not an indicator of being quote unquote done. Me telling them 33 times does not mean it's more done than if I told them 31 times. It only means it's done when they actually apply this knowledge in decision making. So this is something that we started to integrate into our training meetings and one-on-one conversations that, again, really in a meaningful way move the needle. Because in the beginning, we would ask them, how do you apply this knowledge that you've learned in your day-to-day decision making? And they would have no answers. And we could feel that it wasn't working. We could feel that we all talked about this stuff and the talking part was taken care of, but the doing part wasn't. We knew that was true. And so we began asking, like, tell me, like, it doesn't feel like we're doing this. Like, how are you doing this? And they didn't have answers. Well, after a while, they slowly began to have answers. And then again, like many things, it happens slowly, then boom, all of a sudden. And slowly the answers begin to trickle in. Well, now that I know that this is the most important thing, here's something I did. I'll give you an example again using our vehicle accidents as a thing. We had a whole protocol for parking a truck and putting cones out and all the kind of stuff. And when our guys began to tell us, you know what, 6 months ago, I'd hear you guys talk about that. And I just thought it was a bunch of bullshit. I just thought it was not a thing. And now I'm actually doing it. That coincided with us seeing our vehicle accidents decline. It coincided with us seeing workers' comp injuries decline. It coincided with us seeing property damage decline. When they began to be able to articulate to us how they were actually applying this knowledge, we could see it in other measurable metrics and KPIs. We could feel it in how things were being performed. So that is the ultimate indicator. The ultimate finish line is the application. And so that was a component of the training that we integrated in a few years in. And that really, really changed things, because once they knew that it wasn't just being able to talk the talk, it was you had to be able to explain how you walk the walk. It completely changed how the training went. So that's it for this 6-part series. I hope it was helpful. I would love to hear your feedback. If there's anything that doesn't quite make sense and you want some clarification on, shoot me an email, brian@successful-concepts.com. I'm easy to find on Facebook. I'm easy to find. I'm on Instagram now. That's pretty, I'm new and hip, or young and hip now. I got an Instagram account, so I'm easy to find. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, let me know. If there's something you want clarification on, let me know. If this was helpful, let me know. I'd love to hear some feedback on how this has helped, if it has. And I promise you have peers and friends who are wishing that they had better training strategies, practices, tactics, or whatever. This is something many, many people struggle with. This would be a great episode to share with a friend. And just, you never know how this could help somebody. Some of these things, I cannot overstate how much they helped us and helped me. And if you ever hear a friend say, I feel like our training isn't working, these are great episodes to share. It could really, really help somebody out. if they were, maybe I'm just the anomaly. Maybe it's only me it helped. But this is a topic that people do struggle with. People wish they had answers for some of the things we're covering here. So, of course, public sharing is also appreciated. That's it for this 6-part series, and that's it for this week. I'll talk to y'all next week.